Millennials aren't designed for lockdown, declares Millennial who can't cook or be an adult. Hello everyone, this is Mr. Obvious, and today on stuff.co.nz, here we are. Millennials aren't designed for lockdown, declares Millennial. You know, I've noticed a really big problem in modern society with modern Western millennials, and honestly, a lot of women and men out there. There's a bunch of people who don't even know how to cook, or be an adult, or function in real life. Now, cooking is probably one of the most important skills you can know. Imagine not knowing how to feed yourself. Up until last week, it had probably been 6 months since I did a proper supermarket shop. I nipped in every few weeks for bin bags and detergent, but otherwise, most of my food habits were pretty much modeled on the most millennial stereotype you can imagine. I, like a lot of millennial women, have always lived like I'm Anne Hathaway in The Devil Wears Prada. We like to live our lives as a certain type of glamorously stressed young woman who's forever stepping out of Ubers, clutching coffees, and text walking into meetings, shaking out our blow dry in a too busy to deal with everyday banality kind of way. So here we go. Modern millennial woman. Can't clean, can't cook, a vital life skill. She can't do it. She doesn't know how. Like, she is completely and utterly clueless. And look at it. She's bragging and boasting. I live like Anne Hathaway from this movie. I run around and get coffees. I don't have time to cook. So I eat out and I eat out and I eat out. Now, this is why a lot of people are broke, because they can't cook, so they eat out, which is really expensive, and spend all their money on fast food. Not only is this unhealthy, it's just ridiculous. Now, as a man, I'm personally, I just find it disgusting when a woman cannot cook. What do I want with a woman who can't cook? What good does that do me? What good does that do anybody? First of all, you can't feed yourself. Second of all, how are you going to feed me? But you know what? Before we get into this story, a quick word from this week's sponsor.
Zuck the cuck drinks water like a duck, but he also drinks your data. So tell him and Google to shove your data up their schwing-schwangs by downloading the Brave browser. It's free, blocks online advertising, and protects your privacy and data from evil tech companies. You only see ads if you want to see them, and you get cryptocurrency for your attention. Don't let Zuck use you to make a buck. Download Brave by clicking on the link down below.
And we're back. So back to the point here. Someone who survives off coffee, nervous tension, and afterpay on her extensive collection of just average mid-range handbags. So they don't cook, they're always eating out, and they waste money on stupid handbags. Gee, I wonder why so many people are screwed over by this global crisis. Yes. Modern millennial, wasting their money, not knowing how to cook, not knowing how to be an adult. Someone who, if she does make time to eat, lives on Uber Eats, takeaway salads, and weekends brunching out. Someone who, if she does cook, gets those dinky meal kits that have transformed Dinner for One from a sign of spinsterhood to that of a successful career girl. Oh my god. I realized the full extent of my predicament last weekend when my dad looked into the fridge and recoiled in horror at its sole occupants. A bot of hoisin sauce and 1 carrot that had shriveled into a gangrenous orange toe. Verity, he said in a deliberately calm voice, you need to go to the supermarket. It hadn't really occurred to me, in the event of a pandemic, given my current level of hunter-gatherer skills, I'd be living off the mold at the back of the fridge. So I took Dad's advice. Oh my gosh. Did you just read that? Never once in her entire life did Verity ever even have the thought that there may come a time when she'll have to provide for herself, cook for herself, perhaps even gather food for herself, and survive. This is the mind of a modern millennial. And it's not just women, I've seen men with this mindset. I once knew a coworker, and this was back when I was working in retail. They had no food in their fridge, literally just had water. They would eat out for every single meal. Now, they had a crappy apartment. And I'm not saying that the reason they lived in a crappy apartment was because they ate out for every meal, but I'm saying, well, yeah, maybe it is. Maybe you could afford a better place if you actually bought your own groceries and cooked. So I have another screen cap from 4chan, and here we have some Annans who have pretty insightful comments, in my opinion. Here Anonymous says, it's millennial rebellion. Parents had to find gender roles. Reject gender roles. Parents are white, in touch with their European heritage. hate white people. Parents don't support LGBT. Pretend to be bisexual. Parents want you to get a real education. Get a gender studies degree. Parents want you to have a career. Work McJobs. Participate in the gig economy. And sell nudes while calling yourself a sex worker. Parents expect you to cook. Reject the idea of cooking for yourself like an imbecile. So, this Annan, who comes from Canada, has a pretty good point in my opinion. There's just so much rebellion among the youth. And it's so sad because the norm has become people who don't know how to be adults, who can't take care of themselves, who can't even cook. That is the norm now. Rejecting tradition, rejecting things that actually make sense, like gender roles, those make sense. And anyone who says otherwise is a moron, okay? There's a reason we have gender roles, just like there's a reason that there's differences between men and women. There's a reason for most of these things. Not all of them. Most of them. That's the problem with modern millennials. They took traditionalism and they looked at conservatism and they were like, wow, here's one thing I don't like and I think is wrong. And maybe they were right. Maybe the thing they were criticizing was wrong. But you know what their conclusion was? Well, I guess that means that all of conservatism and all of traditionalism is wrong. I'll just rebel. When in reality, no, it has its flaws. But that doesn't mean it's all wrong. Conservatism, traditionalism, these are all important. They all make sense for a lot of reasons. And when something is a tradition, usually it's tradition for a reason. Not always, but often. Here Anonymous replies, they're missing out on a great pleasure. Once you know how to cook, it can be incredibly enjoyable, provided you have enough time to put some effort into it. Taking 2 hours to cook something you can be proud of is far more enjoyable than binge watching whatever trash on Netflix and eating a salt-dense, high-sugar microwave meal of dubious origin. So she took her father's advice. She returned home from Countdown laden with carrots and bananas and promptly came down with a sniffle. She got sick. I wonder what kind of sickness she got. It took only a week of self-isolation for me to realize that firstly, New Zealand was hurtling toward lockdown, and my lifestyle was about to change dramatically. And secondly, many of my millennial attitudes to food were absolutely bananas, especially that of being conspicuously undomesticated. The aforementioned "don't you know I'm far too busy to cook" lifestyle isn't necessarily a sign of laziness. It literally is, you incompetent child. You know what everyone can do, and this is really, it's possible. All you gotta do, on the weekends or on your days off, when you have time, you can make large amounts of food and put it in a freezer. You can freeze your own food that you can take out later to eat. It's something that works. The food won't taste as good, obviously, but it works. And honestly, you're going to save yourself a lot of money. A lot of money. Potatoes are dirt cheap. Eggs are fairly cheap. There's a lot of basic food cooking ingredients out there that cost almost nothing. Garlic alone is it's less than $1 for a whole clove, and that clove is going to last you for plenty of meals. Cooking works, my friends. Not only is the food going to taste better, going to be healthier, you're going to save money. There's nothing not to love about cooking. And once you get good at it, you can impress everybody, and you have a valuable skill. So back to the story, she's saying, well, it's not that we're lazy. For many of us, it's actually a sign that we're winning in life. This is what delusion sounds like. Yeah, this is absolutely 100% cope, 100% delusion. If you don't even have time to cook, are you really winning at life? If you don't have time to do anything, are you winning? Are you really winning? As an American, I don't want to work 12 hours a day, have no time to do anything for myself. Nobody wants that. I certainly don't. I want a life too. I want to have a life. I honestly think we work too many hours as it is. We should only work 4 days a week, in my opinion, and no more than 8 hours a day, maybe even less. But then they have a really good point. School taught people that suffering with exams, hockey, music, Kuman, blah blah blah, competitive cucumber carving, I do Mongolian basket weaving, means we were ever optimized. Well, okay, so that's actually a very good point. A lot of this is because of school. School teaches students that busy work is work when it's not. It teaches students that, you're just there for the grade. You're not necessarily there to be productive. And most of all, school is not really about learning anymore. It's about memorizing bullcrap, regurgitating it. It sucks. Yeah, I'm a college student, and yes, I'm close to getting my degree. How much did I learn? Honestly, I've learned a lot. but I cannot remember much of jack squat that I learned from high school or middle school or anything like that, like basic English, basic math, but they never taught me any life skills. They never taught me how to cook. They never taught me how to do taxes. I had to learn all that on my own. The problem is that it only takes a few days of ploddingly paced self-isolation to realize that conspicuous anti-domestication wasn't probably doing jack squat for you. And worse, you can't even comfort eat your way out of the self-realization because you don't know how to make mac and cheese. Oh my god, mac and cheese is so freaking simple. Look, okay, let's try to be positive. This person realizes that they're wrong, that they have a problem, that they can't cook, and that they need to learn. So that's better than a vast majority of millennial people and modern Western women that I've seen. So yeah, okay, congratulations. You need to learn. I'm not going to say you should learn. I'm going to say you need to learn. You know, I'm all set if the apocalypse happens because I have the SAS Survival Handbook, the bestseller. Like, it's the complete guide to survival. And no, I don't have a sponsor for this. But I have the book. And I also know the basics of cooking and fire making and all that. I'm just saying, folks, like, how can you live like this? But at least she admits it. At least she's admitting it. I've also done a complete about-face on the low level of disdain I've always had for domesticity. And that's the attitude that a lot of millennial women have. To all the women out there, if you're like this, if you believe this, know that you are completely and utterly undesirable to any man who is not an idiot. There is nothing less attractive and more repulsive than someone who doesn't know how to function as a caretaker, as an adult, can't even cook. I know, I'm sorry. But that's just how it is. It's a vital skill. Everyone should know it. It's like swimming. If you can't swim, I assume that there's something wrong with you. I mean, come on. How can you not know how to swim? How can you not know how to cook? These are things that anybody can learn. Now, if you have some sort of disability, if you are truly mentally or physically challenged, I understand. Maybe you can't cook. Maybe you need a little bit more practice. Many millennial women were raised by boomer mums and grew up watching our lives crushed by household minutiae and the need to plan what everyone's eating for dinner. We'd break the cycle of thin tomato oppression by being Anne Hathaway instead. Ugh. You know, they never mention having a husband, and I'm not surprised at all. Yeah, it's oppression to provide for your family. It's oppression to cook. Let me guess. Her boomer mom cooked all of her meals and fed her healthy food. And what was her thought? Wow, I don't appreciate my mother, and I want to learn to be just like her so that I can provide for my family someday. She thought, no, that seems like a lot of work. I don't want to do it. I want to work at my career instead. And now she has no husband. She's maybe not the healthiest, to put it nicely. And yet one week in, and I'm already thanking God for the exact domestic skills I was dissing last week. And so all the reasons that I held so tight to my too busy to chop a spud millennial mentality seem to have disappeared faster than people's self-control over toilet paper. Maybe that's because they were inherently just a distraction, or maybe because they were a bit self-absorbed, or maybe it's all because real priorities become sharper in a crisis. Thank you. I think that's it, folks. In times of crisis, people show you what they're really made of, and they either learn and adapt and overcome, or they completely and utterly fail. So as much as I've criticized this millennial, and as much as I've criticized, these people who don't know how to cook, don't know how to be adults, just don't know how to function, at least she recognized she had a problem, and she finally did what she should have done a long time ago. She's learning to cook, she's enjoying it, and she's changed her mind. But that's merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about this story? Do you think millennials aren't designed for this lockdown? Now, as always, if you want to support this content, you can do so by joining me on Patreon or Subscribestar. If you want to donate, you can do so through DonorBox that works with PayPal and just about everything else, or through Bitcoin. All links are down below in the description. One of the best things you can do is to share the video on social media. Honestly, if you know another millennial that doesn't know how to cook, send them this video. Okay. As always, thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious, and I'll see you all next time.